My name is Aria Calloway, the eldest daughter of the Calloway family, the same Calloways behind Clarion Capital, a name whispered with reverence in East Coast finance circles. For most of my life, I believed I was part of that legacy, until that night, when a single toast shattered everything. It was Grandma's 80th birthday dinner. The woman who taught me how to bake apple pie when I was 6, who read Shakespeare to me before I even understood irony. I'd been away for nearly 3 years, building a life in San Francisco, far from the curated perfection of this family. I came back not for recognition, just for her. The dinner was held at the Hampton estate, what my mother called the ancestral home, though it changed hands 4 times before Dad bought it. The dining room was classic, a polished mahogany table, bone-white linens, porcelain china arranged like a catalog photo. The room was tense, but everyone wore their masks until Lyra stood up, my younger sister. Perfect posture, silk dress, red lips curved in a smile designed for social media, not sincerity. I expected a sentimental toast, something safe, but instead, she said, "Let's toast." Lyra began sweetly, looking straight through me, to family and to knowing our place. Because some people, her eyes locked onto mine, will never be one of us. The sound of crystal glasses clinking was cold, sharp, and my own mother, didn't flinch. She lifted her glass, tapped it gently against Lyra's. Silent agreement. I didn't move. No one did. My father focused on his plate. No one said a word, except Grandma. She looked at me, the only one who still saw me. That was the moment. The moment I realized I'd been erased. I stood up, folded my napkin, placed it by the untouched plate, gave Grandma a nod, and walked out. No anger, no tears, only clarity, emotional transition. I didn't know if I'd just left a dinner, or left a world, but I was certain of one thing. From that moment on, I'd stop asking for a seat at their table. I would build my own. 2 days after that dinner, I was still in town. At first, it was because Grandma said, "Don't leave just yet. I need to talk to you." But the truth? I wanted to see what they'd do next, now that they thought I was out. The answer came faster than expected. Lyra hosted a partner appreciation gala at the Aurora Hotel, the same venue where I once held my first startup summit. I wasn't invited, but Grandma was, and she brought me as her +1. We walked into the marble-lit ballroom, chandelier light catching the silver strands of her hair like a crown. I walked beside her, wearing a plain black dress. No brand, no label. Not because I lacked them, but because I wanted them to see me. Just me. When Lyra saw me, she paused half a second, then smiled, as if nothing cracked. "Oh, Aria, you made it," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Did you RSVP? The guest lists?" A bit tight. Laughter sparked around us, quiet and sharp. Someone whispered awkward behind a glass of champagne. I smiled. "I came with Grandma. She's on the list, right?" Lyra nodded. Her eyes flickered, just for a beat. But then she went all in. "Well," she turned to the crowd, "family's complicated, but that doesn't mean we don't support each other in spirit." I knew what that meant. A soft exile. A denial that sounds polite but cuts all the same. I stood there beside Grandma like an unwanted guest someone hadn't removed for the sake of appearances. This wasn't shock anymore. This was exposure. I'd walked back into a world I used to belong to, only to realize I never truly had. But you know what's strange? I didn't feel humiliated. I felt clear. I looked around the room at the hollow smiles, the rehearsed greetings, the glassy eyes behind designer frames. And I wondered, had I ever really belonged here? Or had I just fought to be noticed? Emotional transition. Public shame didn't make me shrink anymore. It made me watch. Because sometimes, you need to let them show their full masks before you flip the whole stage. That night, I didn't go back to Grandma's. I walked around Crescent Lake, the same lake where Dad taught me to ride a bike when I was 7. And I kept asking myself, why me? Why could Mom stay silent while her daughter got humiliated at dinner? Why could Lyra, who once called me sobbing to pick her up from a disastrous college party, look me in the eye, and publicly mock me? I didn't have answers, only memories. And when I started piecing them together, the picture was terrifying. This didn't start the other night. It started long before that. I just refused to see it. I remembered the New Year's Eve when I was 16. Lyra shattered a crystal sculpture in the living room. But I got yelled at. Mom said, "You're the big sister. You should have taught her better." I remembered when I got accepted to a top university. Mom's response, "Have you considered deferring to take care of Grandma for a year?" But when Lyra got a scholarship to Florence, we threw a farewell party like she was royalty. I'd always been cast in the role of the responsible one. No one ever asked if I wanted to play it. And the bitter truth? I accepted it. I thought, if I just worked harder, stayed quiet, showed maturity, they'd see me. But they didn't. What I thought was maturity was just convenient silence to them. And now, I understood. I wasn't forgotten. I was placed exactly where they needed me. To carry. To step aside. To not disturb the image. For the first time in my life, I didn't want to be understood anymore. I wanted to be seen. Treated fairly. Not as a moral compass, but as a person. Emotional transition. I wasn't sad to be excluded anymore. I was disappointed in myself for building the low chair I sat on. But if I once built a chair, then I could build a whole new table. I left the Aurora Hotel right after Lyra's speech. No applause. No glance back. Just straight to my car, a black SUV I bought with the payout from my first investment deal at 28. No one knew it had been parked out front the whole night. Just like me. Silent, steady, unbothered by the spotlight. That night, I opened my laptop and logged into the management dashboard of Maven Park Ventures, my private investment firm, founded 5 years ago, currently managing over $400 million in assets. No one in my family knows I'm the founder. I've never done a press release. No social media. All statements are issued through spokespeople. Because I don't need attention. I need leverage. I clicked into the new pitch our team flagged earlier that morning. Lyra Calloway. Raising a seed round for an edtech startup called Brightnest. Target, $2 million. Already raised $1.2 million from Family Connections. Still short, 800. Currently in urgent talks with an anonymous venture group. I smiled. That anonymous group was me. I instructed our analysts not to decline, but not to commit either. Just enough to keep her waiting for 2 more weeks. During that time, I quietly acquired majority stake in the event management company that operates Aurora Hotel. The same venue where she hosted the gala that turned me invisible. Not under my name. Through a Delaware Holding LLC, buried beneath 3 shell layers. Even Aurora's lawyer didn't know who their new owner was. A week later, Lyra emailed, politely begging for an update. 3 days after that, she called only to get a vague, "We're still reviewing," response. I said nothing. I didn't need to. I only gave one instruction. Her next investor showcase scheduled at Aurora would be postponed indefinitely due to system upgrades. No refund, no rescheduling, because the contract said we could. I wasn't trying to ruin her, just wanted her to know. The places she once used to exclude me, I own them now. Emotional transition. This wasn't revenge. It was quiet strategy. Because sometimes, when they step forward, they find out you were sitting there all along. After the conference cancellation, Lyra never called me, of course. She didn't suspect I had anything to do with it. And that was my greatest advantage. They still thought I was the one left out. A week later, I got an email from Mom. Subject line, "About your recent appearances. Clinical." Like she was writing to a colleague, not her daughter. She said my unannounced attendance at the gala had confused some guests, and that if I intended to appear at future family events, I should notify the hosts so appropriate seating can be arranged. I didn't get angry. I just smiled. That evening, I submitted a private bid to purchase the southern land parcel Clarion Capital was negotiating to turn into their next conference center. Not through my fund. Through my personal real estate firm, quiet, fast, and direct. They wanted reputation. I wanted silence. But in this world, ownership speaks louder than any name on a guest list. And then it happened. 2 weeks later, my father, who hadn't called me in 3 years, left a voicemail. Aria, I think maybe we should talk. Some misunderstandings, and a few projects I'd like your input on. I didn't return the call. I didn't have to. Instead, I sent invitations to a new event I was hosting, a national startup summit partnered with the Carnegie Fund, hosted at where else? Aurora Hotel. The event was titled Redefining Legacy, Building What They Said You Couldn't. I left 3 VIP seats unnamed, just like they once left me outside. 3 days later, Lyra texted me, "Are you behind this?" I didn't reply. Instead, I made my first ever LinkedIn post. No need to knock where the door was never meant to open. Build your own. Then I turned off my phone. I didn't need to watch their reactions. I didn't write it for them. I wrote it for me. Emotional transition. I didn't fight to reclaim a chair. I built the whole room. And for the first time, I didn't walk in to be accepted. I waited for them to ask permission to enter my world. 3 days before my summit, Grandma called. Her voice sounded weaker than usual. Aria, would you come by the house? There are a few people who need to speak with you. I knew what she meant. I didn't interrupt. I just said yes. When I arrived at the Hampton estate, my mother was at the door. No polished makeup. No power posture. Just her still, unguarded. Inside, my father sat beside Lyra. No one spoke first. The room felt like someone had vacuumed all the air out. Eventually, Mom said, "We know we didn't treat you right." A strange sentence. Not quite an apology. More like an internal memo. Dad nodded. Families should stay aligned, especially when there's a chance to do something meaningful together. I knew what he was referring to. The land deal. They needed me more than emotionally. As for Lyra, she looked at me, no more challenge, but no surrender either. I know it was you behind everything. If you want me out, just say so. I exhaled. I didn't want her gone. I just wanted them to choose. I placed my phone on the table. Spoke clearly. I'm not here to punish. I don't need apologies. But if you want to move forward with me, there are 3 non-negotiables. I'm not the outsider anymore. I hold majority stake in Aurora and strategic positions across 3 of your active ventures. From now on, it's either I'm in the room or the funding isn't. No rewriting the past unless you're ready to own it. No, we all made mistakes. No brushing it under the rug. I don't need closure. I need clarity. If you want me at the table, accept me as an equal. Not above, not below. Just equal. As a sister, a daughter, a partner. Silence. No objections. Only recognition, clear and quiet. I stood. Grandma will have a car to the event. Anyone else who wants to attend, feel free. But I won't be reserving seats. Emotional transition. I didn't come back to reconcile. I came back to redraw the lines. And whoever can accept that can call me family. After the summit, things looked healed. The press was glowing. Lyra stopped avoiding me. Dad started texting me for investment advice. Mom started sending pictures of food, asking if I'd eaten. It all looked different. But I wasn't stupid. I watched. And what I saw was this. They weren't sorry. They were adjusting to keep me around. Because I was useful. I had doors they couldn't open. Contacts they couldn't reach. The truth surfaced during a family reunion dinner. They organized the first in 6 years. I got an actual invite. Typed. Formal. With a handwritten note from Mom. I hope this time is the right time. I showed up. Same Hampton estate. Same crystal glasses, silk napkins, white roses arranged with surgical precision. People greeted me with smiles. Complimented me. You're glowing. You're unstoppable. You came back stronger than ever. Then came the main program. A presentation of a new joint venture between Clarion and an educational foundation. The foundation rep took the mic. To my surprise, it was someone I'd advised 2 months ago in private. I'd never permitted my name to be linked to Clarion. But then, on the screen behind him, Special Advisor, Aria Calloway. I never signed anything. I never agreed. They just added me. I looked around. Lyra avoided my eyes. Dad sat upright, nodding. Mom smiled and clapped. They assumed I'd stay silent. For the occasion. For appearances. For family. But I didn't. This time, I stood up, walked calmly to the mic, took it in my hand, and said, I appreciate seeing my name up here, but let me clarify. I am not an advisor on this project, and any connection publicly stated has not been authorized by me. No yelling, no anger, just correction, sharp enough to silence a room. I set the mic down and left. That night, Mom called. I didn't answer, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty about it. Emotional transition. I wasn't angry for being used. I just woke up, and this time I wouldn't walk back in just because someone said, try to be understanding. After that dinner, I never returned to the Hampton estate. Not once. Not out of anger. Just because I didn't need to anymore. The invitations started coming. From places I once thought were beyond me. The Rockwell Foundation's mentorship circle. An honorary seat on the National Technology Council. A keynote slot at the Global Young Entrepreneurs Forum. And then, a letter from the university I was once told to delay for family priorities. We are honored to invite Aria Calloway back to Dartmouth to receive an honorary doctorate in social innovation and sustainable business. I held that letter in my hand, standing in the window of my corner office. Behind me, my assistant was finalizing a flight to Switzerland. I didn't cry. I just nodded. In 2010, they told me to wait. In 2025, they asked me to lead. The ceremony was held in early fall. I didn't tell my family. I didn't need them to witness it. But when I stepped onto the stage to accept the degree, I saw on a familiar face. Grandma. Front row. Eyes shining like she'd known this was coming all along. After the ceremony, she didn't say much, just held my hand and whispered, finally, they see what I always saw. And I realized I no longer needed validation from them, because now I was validated by worlds they'd never even entered. In the circles Mom once called naive dreamers, I was now cited in global economic reports. In the arenas Dad once dismissed as non-serious, I was shaping sustainable investment policy. Lyra sent a text after the ceremony. Congratulations, proud of you. I replied with 3 words. Hope you're well. No venom. Not chill. Just a message from another tier entirely. Emotional transition. I didn't become something new. I just stopped shrinking to fit their frame. And when I stood tall, the world had to shift around me. Near the end of the year, Grandma had a minor stroke. I flew back overnight. No one told me. She texted me herself, right before they wheeled her in. If you can come, I'd love it. But don't force it just for bloodlines. That sentence said more than any apology I'd ever gotten from my family. Because kinship without respect is just guilt in formal wear. I arrived at the hospital at 2 a.m. Only one person was in the room. Mom. She looked at me. Not surprised. Not guarded. We sat in silence for 10 minutes. Just the heart monitor ticking and fluorescent lights buzzing above. Then Mom spoke. Not an apology. Just a confession. I used to think you were difficult. But now I think maybe I was just weak. I chose what I could control. And you? You never let anyone control you. I didn't respond right away. I just set down my bag, took out a scarf, and placed it gently over Grandma's feet. I used to think, if I was good enough, you'd love me the way I needed. I said it calmly, not as an accusation. But then I realized, love isn't a reward. If you have to earn it that hard, it's not love. It's a contract. Mom didn't argue. She nodded. And for the first time, she looked small. Not in stature. In power. I stayed until dawn. When the sky turned pink, I left the hospital without saying goodbye. On the way to the airport, I got a message from Lyra. I know you don't need us anymore, But if you ever want to come back just to have cake with me, I'll keep the kitchen warm." I didn't reply, but I smiled. Not because I wanted to go back, but because, for the first time, I had the power to choose what stays and what ends. Emotional transition. I wasn't seeking redemption. I just wanted to know, when I no longer needed love on their terms, would it still exist? And now I know. Yes. But this time, it plays by my rules. My life now isn't busier. It's just deeper. I still go to the office every morning. Not because I have to, but because I want to. I want to watch young founders light up with impossible ideas. I want to be present. Not as a CEO, but as living proof that you don't need to be validated to be valuable. One day, I entered a boardroom full of people who once ignored me when I was a junior analyst. They stood, shook my hand, called me Miss Calloway. No one mentioned the past, and I didn't need them to. I'd learned that the most powerful thing you can do is not mention what you're strong enough to forgive. I still receive invitations to consult with Clarion. I don't reject them, but I set terms. I'm not the helpful daughter. I'm the strategic partner. And that was respected. During a press panel, a reporter asked, "Do you feel like your family's finally accepted you back?" I looked straight into the camera. Didn't miss a beat. I don't think I needed to come back. I never left. They just needed time to understand the way I exist. My presence now needs no introduction, no defense. It carries weight, like a stone in the current, making the water bend around it. And the thing I cherish most? I no longer need to win against anyone. I just need peace in the version of me I chose. Emotional transition. They once said I was too cold, too sharp, too different. Turns out, that's the exact language the world was waiting for. I didn't shift to fit in. I stood still until what didn't belong stepped aside. On a crisp autumn afternoon, I attended the opening ceremony of the Aria room, a creative learning hub, not named by me, but by students in the scholarship program who insisted. It's an open space for kids left behind by the system, a place where dreaming is allowed, failure is expected, and beginning again is sacred. During the event, a teenage girl, maybe 17, walked up to me. Her eyes held both hesitation and hope. "Miss Aria, if people once looked down on you and you still made it, does that mean we might have a chance too?" I didn't give her a lecture. I just held her hand, looked into her eyes, and said, "No one gets to decide your worth, especially not people who've never lived your life." No applause. No flashing cameras. Just a real moment between two people who once felt invisible. That night, I sat alone on the rooftop of my new home. The same skyline that once made me feel small. Now, it felt right-sized. I remembered it all. The silences mistaken for weakness. The effort dismissed as theatrics. The dinners I was never invited to. The laughter when I once said, "I want to change something." I no longer need to retell those stories. Because now, I see young people walking into spaces I helped build, not to hear me speak, but to find their own voice. That's what I leave behind. Not to be remembered, but so they won't need me anymore. Emotional transition. I don't need a statue. I just need a door. And if someone walks through it, that's legacy enough. At the end of the year, I was invited to speak at a global summit for emerging leaders. No dramatic titles about revenge. No flashy narratives about sacrifice. Just a single session headline. Freedom means you no longer have to explain. I stood in front of 800 faces, every age, every color, every background. I didn't talk about what my family did. I didn't recount how I got here. I spoke about one thing. Real power isn't in what you reclaim. It's in how you live once you no longer need to fight. Afterward, an older man in a gray suit approached me. He said, "My daughter used to think she had to be someone else to be loved. Tonight, she'll go home knowing she can just be her." I shook his hand, walked out of the venue. No roaring applause, no cameras chasing, but I knew I'd left something real behind. Not for the people I once wanted to prove something to, but for the ones just starting out. I returned to my apartment by the lake, brewed a pot of tea, opened the window, No racing thoughts. No rehearsed next moves. Just peace. My phone buzzed. A message from Lyra. Are you free Saturday? Nothing fancy. I just got apple pie. I read it. And this time, I replied, bring 2 spoons. Not because I forgave. Not because I needed them. But because I was whole enough not to flinch anymore. Ending? Number? This was just the first time I got to live without needing permission. Some exclusions are never spoken aloud, but they cut deep enough to make you believe you don't belong anywhere. And some awakenings don't come with a loud bang. They arrive in the quiet moment you realize, I don't need permission to exist. Aria's story wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming the right to live on her own terms. She didn't bend to be accepted. She didn't perform to be loved by those who refused to see her worth. She simply stood her ground and let the world adjust. In real life, maybe you've been excluded too. From a dinner table, from a family, from a dream that once felt like home. But the point isn't who pushed you out. It's whether you're brave enough to rewrite your place from the outside in. Remember this, you don't need an invitation to build a new table. And sometimes, the strongest form of forgiveness is walking away with a heart that no longer begs to be chosen. If this story spoke to you, leave a comment below. Share your thoughts, your strength, your moment of awakening. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss what comes next. We'll see you tomorrow with a new story, where pain isn't the end of the sentence, but the first chapter in a life rewritten with freedom, clarity, and self-worth.